When the Senate made him emperor, everyone in Rome rejoiced. His father was the great general Germanicus, who ended the bloody treason trials of the old bastard Tiberius and granted amnesty to those unjustly exiled. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, aka Caligula, was now the new emperor of the Roman Empire. The story now jumps into the future, to a small olive farm in the middle of the night. Ibrahim, the family's Jewish slave, goes to see who was knocking on the door in the middle of the night, but when he opens the door, someone stabs him with a sword. He was greatly injured and falls on the ground as the emperor, together with Marcus and Nera, enter the small farm. Julia, the owner of the farm, asks her son and his wife to calm down and be respectful, unaware of what had happened to Ibrahim. Even though he was a slave, Ibrahim was like a member of the family and everyone loved him dearly. Julia doesn't know who these people are or what they want, but falls to her knees as soon as she recognizes King Caligula. She wonders if they are traveling and if they are hungry. She offers her home to them, but the emperor has other intentions. He asks her to remove her clothes and spread herself on the large dining table in the back. He then violated her and, when he was done, Caligula let the others take turns and enjoy themselves. When they were done, he cut off their heads, including his son's entire family, but not before raping them too. They also defecated in the house and urinated on the altar of the Lares. Then he made a stew of their heads and feasted on it together with his men. Junius, the youngest son, was away at the market to sell their olive oil, the finest in all of Rome. Ibrahim was still alive when he came back, and he told him everything that happened last night and then passed away himself. Junius was overwhelmed with rage, but what could he do? He was just a simple olive farmer. His father was a brave centurion that fought in many wars, until he lost his foot in Judea and had to retire. The young man forced himself to stare at his mother's corpse while she lay defiled on the table. The entire scene was pure monstrosity and madness. He packed his bags and set the entire farm on fire. He abandoned everything except his mule and headed towards Rome. He had never been there and couldn't understand how people chose to live this way. He was afraid he would melt from the heat of all the bodies. The place was packed with people from all over the empire. He found a place to stay and planned his revenge. He began by watching the palace and spying on people who went inside, people who bribed the soldiers to let them go inside, but it was a lot more than he could afford. He began following several of the guardsmen, which led him to a public bath. He focused on one guard in particular, Calvus, who enjoyed the company of younger men to satisfy his pleasures. While the entire scene disgusted him, it was far from uncommon. Another man comes inside, a man he's seen before. Laurentius Aquilinus is his name and he is part of the palace security. Just like Junius's father, this is a man of honor, and he picks on Calvus, beating him for being in company of younger men. Junius has nightmares, remembering what happened to his family, and he started seeing horrors even when he was awake. He chose to not let fear deter him, and he goes on with his plan to avenge his family. He goes to the palace and tries to sneak inside, but Calvus is on duty and stops him. The guard likes him and offers to let him pass, but in exchange Junius gives him a job. It didn't matter what he had to do. Nothing would stop him from accomplishing his goal of avenging his family. The palace was a masterpiece. What he sees inside disgusts him. A woman and a dog doing unholy things behind one of the columns. Junius had never seen such a sight. Things are even worse in the big hall and he wasn't prepared for what he was about to see. Tens of people engaging in public orgies, swinging partners and doing disgusting things. But the smell inside that place was worse than the sight. The entire scene overwhelms him and he goes back outside to puke his guts out, when out of nowhere, a woman comes running towards him. She runs straight into him and they both fall on the ground. Suddenly, the emperor appears, happy that Junius stopped the woman from escaping. Finally, he was face to face with the murderer of his family, and he decides to make his move. While Caligula prepares to put the woman on the floor, Junius takes out a knife that he was keeping hidden inside his olive bottle and jumps towards him. While the emperor was distracted, he was able to stab him straight in the head, with the knife going all the way. However, Caligula seems unbothered by this. He doesn't even notice the knife lodged in his head and asks Junius to fetch him a towel. Everything went according to plan. He snuck inside the palace and stabbed his worst enemy. But why isn't he dead yet? Caligula wipes his nose on the man's clothes and only then does he notice the knife stuck inside his head. He wonders how it got there and doesn't seem to mind it that much. He thanks Junius for his help in stopping that woman and calls him Felix, his lucky boy. He invites him to come to the races tomorrow, and even though he's been on a losing streak, he hopes to win. There's nothing the emperor liked better than the races, and after experiencing them for the first time, Junius can understand why. He never felt his heart so fully in his throat. Watching people race for their lives was exhilarating. The burst of pure emotion from the crowd made him temporarily forget his purpose. They were cheering and placing bets on who they thought was gonna win. Marcus and Nera were two of Caligula's closest friends, and Junius recognizes them from what Ibrahim told him. His blood boiled with anger, but he couldn't do anything. Not here, not now. His friends were getting bored with the same kind of races, so Caligula decides to spice things up. He takes Junius down to the stables and ties him to his chariot, claiming he intends to make things a lot more interesting. He tries to calm him down, remarking that his beautiful horse, Incitatus, has never lost a race, and he's gonna be just fine. Junius could feel as if the horse could read his thoughts, and he could tell that the beast didn't like him very much. Laurentius warns the emperor that the wagering and the wine have gone to excess and the people are at each other's throats. He needs to do something before a riot erupts. Caligula gives a big speech, raising the stakes of the race by awarding a very big reward to whoever wins the race. On top of giving away a large sum of money, he will also grant the slaves their freedom and grant citizenship of the empire. As if this wasn't motivation enough, he also kidnapped a loved family member from each racer and tied them to their chariots. Any mistake during the race will cost them their lives, so the racers will be highly motivated to play their best. The stands shook with the roar of the crowd, and Junius could see their true nature, savage, bloodthirsty. And the thrill turned to horror as he knew his death was near. The race begins, and just as predicted, it was a brutal fight to the death. The racers did everything possible to cause their opponent to crash. Nothing mattered more than winning. The people tied to the chariot stood no chance and were brutally killed, and for a brief moment, Junius was overcome by silence as if he had become deaf. He thought he got hurt, and his body was coping with his injuries, but he did not. His black horse had red eyes as if it was made from pure evil, but it kept him alive, racing ahead and leaving his opponents mutilated in the dust. Madness and hysteria overtook the entire stadium as the people cheered the winner. The emperor's horse had won, and Junius had made it out alive. Later, he drank wine till he felt numb, but still he could not repeat the same feeling he had during the race. Caligula asks him if he can write, because he wants him to become his squire and write his holy gospel for him. As reward for today's efforts, the emperor brings his sister Livilla into his bedroom, claiming she has the warmest eyes in all of Rome. He wants her to pleasure Junius, just as he did many times before with all of his friends, but she refuses. The two of them get into a heated argument and he slaps her, forbidding her from screaming, unless she screams of ecstasy. He then violated her and forced Junius to do the same, claiming that if he wants to write the story of his life, he needs to live exactly like him. After he fell asleep, Junius contemplated trying to kill him a second time. But what if he truly is a god? He didn't die the first time. Caligula wakes up and tells him about a man who used to live in Galilee. A good man, sent by the one true God to cure the sick and bring peace to the world, but they killed him by nailing him to the cross. Their conversation is interrupted by the devil horse, Incitatus, who could speak and wanted to know if Junius is good in bed because he has an itch that needs scratching. After what happened, Junius wasn't feeling so good, so he stayed at the palace while Caligula went to the amphitheater to mete out more death. But he wasn't the biggest fan of gladiator fights, even though they were extremely brutal and the public loved them. Unspeakable acts of violence, men, women, and even children fighting to the death, all for the amusement of the people who wanted to satisfy their bloodthirst. Eventually, even the amphitheater itself became a den of insanity. Wine was free, women were free, and the gambling was epidemic. Back at the palace, Junius couldn't get the horror of that horse out of his head. The horse that talked. His body gave itself willingly to the horrid beast, and it laughed while he bled. After he was Caligula sent him to take a bath and called the doctor. He was almost kind to him. Caligula is having an argument with one of the senators, who was warning him that he can't continue spending so much money on games and parties, or else Rome is going to go bankrupt. Caligula orders his people to bribe the senator and then send him to a brothel. Hopefully, he will feel different about everything afterwards. Junius tells the emperor that he heard the horse speak, but doesn't understand how that is possible. But the emperor calls him crazy and puts his head under the water until he comes to his senses. After abusing him like that, he sent him to the brothel, where he spent the next couple of days surrounded by beautiful women who pleasured him in every possible way imaginable. While he was there, he sees Marcus, who was there that night when Caligula killed his mother. He plans his revenge and decides to follow him from behind, but a woman stops and hits on him, demanding money for sexual services. She warns Marcus that Junius is carrying a weapon and maybe he intends to use it, but it was too late. The attack is swift as Junius stabs him in the back, reminding him why he's doing this, retribution for the death of his family. It only took a couple of minutes for Marcus to bleed on the ground, while the woman made her escape and never looked back. Suddenly, Junius starts feeling dizzy and he can't control himself anymore, so he faints. The wind and blood got the better of him and he went unconscious. But when he woke up, he was sleeping in a beautiful bed with silk sheets. But he wasn't in chains, nor dead. Nera found him and had him brought back to her place. She is one of Caligula's closest friends and always wants what the emperor has. In this case, it's Junius. Before they could do anything, Laurentius arrives and says Caligula wants to speak to her, so she leaves him alone. Junius puts on his clothes and goes outside, where he sees Laurentius communicating with a yellow ship somewhere on the distant sea. The emperor orders him to get his pen and parchment because he wants to record what happens next. The emperor's ship, a floating palace drenched in gold and marble, at least 10 times the size of any vessel Junius had ever seen or even imagined. Caligula gets on top of the devil horse and marches towards the giant ship, as his personal slave follows behind, far enough so he doesn't impede on his glory. Out of nowhere, the yellow ship that he saw earlier attacks them, driving straight into the bridge that was leading to the emperor's ship. A swarm of warriors jump on the bridge and attack them, screaming, "Death to Caligula! Kill the mad tyrant, and long live Rome!" However, they weren't ready for what followed next. The emperor's horse brutally kicks the first one in the head, instantly decapitating him. One of the soldiers cuts his leg, but a swarm of worms jumps out that attacks the other soldiers. These were no ordinary worms. They crawled inside the soldier's eyes, mouth, and even skin, causing immense pain and internal bleeding. The horse deals with the other attackers by kicking them and breaking their bones, but Laurentius wants to help. Junius stops him from attacking the horse, claiming he doesn't stand a chance, and if he wants to kill the emperor, he needs to open his eyes and see the truth. Incitatus's burning red eyes were the last thing they remembered, and then it was over. The attack had failed, and the yellow ship sank to the bottom of the sea. Caligula was outraged that someone tried to kill him, claiming he gave the people everything they ever wanted: bread, circuses, life, women, and even wine, but they didn't appreciate him. He then continued the road to his giant ship, but this time, the horse was walking on water. After an attempt on his life, they remained at sea for over a month, unwilling to return to Rome. Caligula had become highly paranoid. He hosted a series of dinner parties to test loyalties. This was to be the third such dinner and easily the worst so far. He invited several senators and their wives and asked them to play a twisted game. Before beginning, he demands complete obedience and asks them to kneel in front of him, saying they should be honored to be in his presence. He then pees on Senator Cassius, completely humiliating him in front of the others. He wants them to play a little game, calling it the murder game. Senator Cassius has been chosen at random to be the victim of the game. He wants them to imagine that he was murdered and one of them is the killer. Senator Vetus was very loyal to the emperor, and his wife, Ocella, was universally considered very beautiful. Senator Plubius was a revered elder statesman, often an opponent of the high seat. He was still respected as a voice of reason. Claudius is Caligula's uncle, and unofficially he is an idiot. He lives because his partial deafness and awkward limp give the emperor no end of amusement. Fabricius Novellus is the imperial questor, a normally quiet man, but the emperor's massive spending has drained the coffers of the empire and turned him into a nervous wreck. His wife is one of the ugliest women in Rome. Nera was also invited to take part in the games. She was more of a plant to keep the plot moving. Her job this whole time has always been to keep her eyes, ears, and legs wide open. Junius's job was to record the whole event, but this was the place where he wanted to be. 1 month ago, he and Laurentius had a secret meeting where they talked about killing Caligula. If they were to be successful a second time, he would need to find his weakness, if he even had one. Junius reads the entire plot of the story, one that the emperor had arranged for his twisted game. The made-up murder of Senator Cassius happened at a private retreat, and one of the guests had to be the murderer. But the plot thickens because there are secret affairs discovered between the people involved in the game, which turns them against each other. Caligula wants one of them to sleep with Nera, but this pisses off the wife. He claims that everything is done with the purpose of testing their loyalties, especially after the attempt on his life. He wants everyone to play their parts, and his part is to sleep with Ocella, one of the beautiful wives. While he takes her to the bedroom to make love, Junius claims that Ocella was having an affair with Nera, and the husband plans to kill both of them and blame their deaths on the murderer of Senator Cassius. But Junius didn't know for sure if he was really supposed to kill them or just pretend to kill them. The details were vague. Everyone was off to play their parts, just a bunch of political enemies forced to screw each other or die. Junius is curious to see what was going on inside the bedroom, so he pulls the curtain away. After abusing Ocella, Caligula killed her, but this wasn't the end. He then reached his hand inside her abdomen, looking for something. He took out something shiny and put it inside a tiny box, which he then swallowed. What did he take from Ocella, and what was that box? Did Junius imagine everything, or was it real? Everything was too much for him to bear, so he goes outside for a walk, but something was troubling him. During the month on the ship, he and Nera had become lovers, mostly because she wanted everything that belonged to the emperor, which was him in this case. He was too afraid to say no. She was a favorite of Caligula's after all. But when the emperor told him the true plot of his game, he was scared. In the end, he is supposed to stab Nera through the chest and pull her intestines out while she screams, revealing to her that he is the olive farmer whose family she helped butcher. Junius had written this unwillingly in the play without even realizing it. But the emperor reads everything he writes, so he comes over to give him the dagger. At the appointed hour, all the guests that were still alive gathered again for a feast, which consisted of cooked Senator Cassius and nothing else. Senator Vetus was unable to do his part and f***ed Nera, while the emperor claims he understands. Ocella was the same. She just laid there in bed like a wet fish, moaning and nothing else, doing nothing with her thighs or with her tongue. Her dead body is brought into the main room, but this infuriates the senator, who tries to kill Caligula. He stabs him in the chest with a fork, but he doesn't even flinch. After killing him, he asks the remaining guests to feast on Senator Cassius as much as they can. The one who eats the most will live. Even though the senator was still alive, the two remaining guests fight over him, trying to remain the only person alive and win the game. The wife of Senator Fabricius is the only one left standing, and the emperor sets her free, asking the guards to safely return her to the streets of Rome. Nera is highly amused by the game and laughs maniacally, even though many people lost their lives. It was time for the final ending, and Junius takes out his dagger and stabs her in the throat, instantly killing her. Caligula comforts him, claiming he remembers his mother. She had a lovely soul. In that moment, Junius was filled with such gratitude for the emperor, and in that moment, he truly loved him. Over the next 9 months, things went from bad to worse. Nothing sated the emperor, his paranoia knew no bounds. The treason trials of Tiberius were reinstituted, more wide-ranging and bloody than ever. He ran Rome's coffers dry, spending billions on bread and circuses for the masses. He ceased all formality, even for show, and would randomly go out dressed like Jupiter, Apollo, or even Venus. He demanded fealty and worship from the people of Rome, raping women on the streets, demanding blood. Needing someone he could trust, he inserted incitatus into the Senate, and a chorus of protests were suddenly silenced with 3 simple words: friends, Romans, countrymen, drop your robes and form a line. Anything to do with the Jews sent him into fits, and when news began to come of minor uprisings from Greece and Judea, he ordered legions of soldiers to annihilate the Jews. But that's when his massive spending came back to haunt him. There was simply no more money for such a massive army, so he raised taxes even higher, starving the people. He became more violent than ever, so much that even just being in his presence was likely to result in death. He brought dozens of Jews to the palace, and he would torture them for his amusement, which seemed to pacify him somewhat. Junius remembers he once told him about a holy man from Judea, one that could walk on water and perform miracles. A man claimed that their God was all-powerful, and he sent his son to cure the world, but what if someone else has made its way among them, something more evil than they could ever imagine? Junius met with Laurentius and told him about the mysterious box he saw with Caligula. He knows the box is the key to his power, but the last time he saw it, the emperor ate it. There is no way to get to it. Laurentius claims that Cassius Scheria makes plans against the emperor, and there's going to be another attempt on his life. He's going to try and buy more time while Junius finds a way to get to the box, but he needs to hurry because a conspiracy against the emperor cannot stay secret for long. They need to strike soon. He had survived the madness by staying as close to the emperor as he could, so he would have no reason to doubt him. But even so, sometimes he'd beat him, burn him, or defile him, but he had no reason to suspect him. One night, Junius was extremely good in bed and offered more wine to satisfy his emperor, but this caused him only to be more suspicious of him, wondering if he was trying to get him drunk. Junius tells the truth and claims he was curious. He saw what he did to Ocella on the great ship and was curious what was the thing he took from her abdomen. Caligula reveals the truth as well. He knew all along that he was the son of the olive woman he killed a while ago, and he knows that he stabbed him in the head, trying to avenge his family. The only reason he didn't kill him, and the reason he still keeps him around, is because Junius is weak. A real man would have tried to kill him a second time, but not him. He is pathetic and weak, a disgrace. He knows he killed Marcus by stabbing him in the back and needed permission to kill Nera as well. That's why he wrote that part in the play. But even with all of these flaws, Caligula claims he loves him, and he is perfect in every way. He then orders his guards to bring one of the slaves and asks Junius to kill him with a dagger. He gives him permission to end another man's life, but that's not all. He orders him to mutilate the body and create something horrible and disgusting, which he called a piece of art. The scene was horrible, but he wasn't done just yet. The emperor asks him to find the man's soul, and even though the stench was horrible, he stuck his hand inside the man's mouth, searching for something. His chest pounded with thrill and excitement, greater than even the chariot races, and he eventually finds something, the man's soul. Caligula then regurgitates and pulls something from his mouth, the small box that Junius saw earlier when he killed Ocella. It had his name written on it, and after placing the soul inside, he swallowed the box once again. Make no mistake, Junius is the emperor's whore and apprentice. He invested much in him and requires complete love and devotion. In return, he offers him freedom. Freedom from worry, freedom from guilt, freedom from suffering, and freedom from even himself. Junius meets with Laurentius again and tells him more about the mysterious box. He thinks that the emperor is possessed by a demon, an old demon that lives so deep that it looks up to Hades as they look up to the heavens. The Jews believe the Son of their one true God came to the world to save humanity and was horribly crucified. He bled, and his blood woke the deep things. He failed, and now it was their turn to rule the world. Junius thinks he is weak, unworthy, but if he was truly weak, he wouldn't have come all this way and tried to kill the emperor to avenge his family. Tomorrow, Caligula is hosting a troupe of young actors. This is when Cassius plans his attack. Before the attack begins, Junius needs to find the box. It's what Caligula uses to feed the demon and the source of his powers. The Praetorians were moving into position. Senator Salvius Barba had arranged for a group of influential loyalists to tour the palace, which were actually assassins in disguise. Cassius Chaerea had his men in place as well, which consisted of every Praetorian in the palace. Cassius was a great hero, having distinguished himself under Caligula's father Germanicus, but because of an injury to his genitalia, his voice turned a bit on the high side, which amused the emperor greatly. While everyone had their reason for hating the emperor, only Laurentius knew how dangerous Incitatus was, and how important it was for him not to come to his master's aid. All of the plans, the assassins, all the secret conspiracies, all of it was for nothing if Junius could not get the box, but he had no idea how to get it. He visits Caligula and claims he wants to do it again. He wants to kill another man and steal his soul. Meanwhile, Laurentius prepares for the greatest battle of his life. He goes alone to face Incitatus. The demon horse doesn't hide his true face and speaks to him, remarking that he knows why Laurentius is here and calls him a mighty warrior. He would rather join forces and work together, but the horse is smart enough to know that will never happen. Laurentius stabs the horse's skin using his mighty spear, and a swarm of worms crawl out, attacking him. He uses his shield to deflect the attack, but the horse claims it doesn't feel any pain. In fact, he thrives on it. The worms attack one of the women sitting by his side and instantly begin to eat her flesh. The horse claims he is immortal and cannot die, but Laurentius knows that if that was true, then he would be sitting on the throne instead of Caligula. He throws burning oil on the ground and then lights it on fire, causing the entire room to be engulfed in flames. The battle rages on and Laurentius' sword gets covered in oil as well, causing it to catch fire and turn red. Even though the horse was confident in his odds, the burning sword causes him great pain, and the mighty warrior uses it to stab him in the back. The mighty demon horse was finally slain, and it dropped on the ground, giving its last breath. Laurentius had severe burns across his body, but luckily there was a pool of cold water for him to fall into. Caligula was in his private chamber torturing Junius yet again, humiliating him and drawing his blood. To make things even worse, the actors that were supposed to perform a play today are brought in. They are disguised to look exactly like his family, and Junius couldn't believe his eyes. He thought it was really them. He jumps towards his mother, hugging her, and she immediately comforts him, saying things are gonna be alright. Caligula begins dictating his play, asking everyone to play their parts and pretend to be Junius's family living on an olive farm. However, Junius sees through the disguise and attacks his fake mother, who was actually a male actor pretending to be female. He jumps on top of him and begins strangling, much to the horror of the other actors watching. Caligula gives him the dagger to mutilate the actor's body, but the scene was too horrific to witness and the others turn away. He then pulls out the man's soul and the emperor regurgitates the small box once again. His heart was pounding out of his chest, but he tried not to panic and hold it together. Caligula gets distracted and Junius grabs the box and runs away, while the emperor orders his guards to stop him. He had done it. He had the box and now he was running, trying to escape. The guards enter the royal chamber, but they didn't come here to stop Junius. They've come here to kill the emperor. They all jump him and slam him to the ground using their swords to cut his body into tiny pieces. The box was the key, and without it, the mad emperor died as easily as any other man. Claudius, the emperor's cousin, was inserted as the new emperor, and life went on in Rome. There was a definite change in the air, though, like a collective sigh of relief after that. Junius ran away from the palace and never looked back. He had no intention of going anywhere near there again. Laurentius visited him, and even though the fight with Incitatus scarred him for life, he was still alive. He brings Junius a gift, the deed to his family's olive grove. He wants him to find a nice girl and bring joy back to his family home, claiming the city is no place for a good man like him. Junius thanks him for the gift and the two men shake hands, saying goodbye to each other. But before leaving, Laurentius wanted to know what he did with the box. He claimed he smashed it beneath a rock and threw the pieces into the sea, but that wasn't actually true. Once he was alone, he removes the bed covers, revealing the mutilated corpse of an old man. Junius regurgitates the box from his throat, revealing that he was using it to make himself immortal. He was now the new Caligula. After a man was brutally murdered on the streets of Rome, his body was dismembered and rearranged into a sadistic ritual. This is the 56th such display, out of which 28 were men, 21 were women, and 7 children. Secundus Laurentius Aquilinus is a tribune of the Praetorian Guard, and he is the one leading the investigation. Aulus, his second in command, is tasked with keeping the people away while he investigates the body. Laurentius puts his hand inside the corpse's mouth, but something comes over him, and he has a vision. He remembers his beautiful wife, Julia, who was killed in a similar fashion, possibly by the same person who killed this poor man. The corpse is draining the Praetorian life force, but luckily Aulus is there to pull him away. In mere seconds, he could feel the warmth of his blood rushing back in, and he was already feeling better. Laurentius knows that the person is not dead yet. It's just missing a piece of himself, the soul. There is nothing they can do to save him, so he asks the guards to burn the body. Laurentius has seen this kind of attack before, and he thinks a demon is to blame. But the emperor's wife doesn't want him spreading horror rumors. Agrippina, the sister of the former emperor Caligula, believes in his cause and wants to meet Laurentius, so she arranged a meeting. After her brother was killed, she was exiled from Rome, so she remarried a very rich and powerful man in the countryside. When her husband died, she inherited everything and welcomes Laurentius to her home. 7 years ago, Laurentius and a young olive farmer named Junius discovered that Emperor Caligula had been possessed by a powerful demon. The source of his power was a small box. In it, Caligula placed the souls of his victims to satiate the demon. They were able to separate the box from its master and kill the emperor, but somehow the demon Caligula escaped and is now roaming the streets of Rome. Agrippina and her son Nero went to see the Troy pageant at the secular games. The people cheered louder for herself and her son than they did for the empress and her son Britannicus, the emperor's heir. She is beloved by the people, but because of this, the emperor's wife wants her killed, alongside her son Nero. Even though this frightens her, what frightens her the most is the demon Caligula, which was in possession of her brother. She wants Laurentius to retire from the royal guard and work for her in helping to find the demon, promising to reward him with so much wealth that it will last him 2 lifetimes. Nero arrives, and Agrippina introduces her son to the mighty Praetorian. After everyone left, she tells Laurentius the truth, that Nero is actually the child of Caligula. He is the son of the demon. When she was still living in the palace, her brother was violent with her and even her multiple times. Even though she was married at that time, the emperor didn't care, and when she told him that she was pregnant, it didn't even faze him. As punishment, he used a sharp dagger and carved an upside-down crucifix post on her abdomen. In the present, she and Pallas Claudius Friedman are having an affair. He used to be a very brave warrior, and the people tell many stories of his heroism, but things aren't what they seem. He is actually another demon, disguising himself to look normal, just like any other man, but his true face is hideous. There is nothing the people of Rome enjoy more than watching gladiators kill each other in the Colosseum. One of these gladiators is the mighty Veraxis, whom everybody loves and adores, but he is gravely injured during one of the fights. His master is Junius, the simple olive farmer who plotted to kill Emperor Caligula and succeeded in stealing the demon box from him. He and Laurentius know each other, and after killing the emperor, Junius claimed he destroyed the box by smashing it against the rocks. He sold his farm, and now makes money by training his slaves to be gladiators and fight in the Colosseum. Laurentius wants his help in tracking and finding the demon Caligula, who is murdering the innocent people of Rome. They agree to meet again tomorrow inside his apartment, but for now, Junius goes in the basement to speak with his fighter. Veraxis was greatly injured and his injuries could be deadly if not treated, but luckily his master knows a few tricks. He licks his wounds, which instantly heal up afterwards, making him healthy again. In exchange, he gets undressed and wants his gladiator to show him some proper worship. During the reign of Caligula, the emperor used to dress up and call himself Mars, the god of horror. He used to attack his sister and beat her up, leaving her with tens of scars all over her body. He claims he only let her have his child because he deemed her smarter than his other sisters, but he wants her total obedience. He wanted her to get inside a bath that was filled with the blood from virgin girls. This blood was part of an unholy ritual and had the effect of healing the wounds on her body. In the present, the empress conspired to kill her husband, Emperor Claudius, but she failed. Agrippina wants to take advantage of this and plans to seduce the emperor and become his wife. But first, Pallas has other plans in mind. Before heading to Rome, he takes his demon out and wants to fuck her from behind. Nero catches them doing it behind the chariot, but he wasn't alone. He was talking to someone who claims it's fun to watch. In Rome, Laurentius finds another body dismembered, but this time it was different. The ritual wasn't finished, there were many parts missing, so maybe the killer was still nearby. There is only one entrance in this cellar, and the door was bolted shut from the inside, but how is this possible? They find something else. A statue of Minerva, the goddess of wisdom. Up until now, all of the victims were mostly Jewish slaves, but this old woman used to be Christian. Laurentius wants to study this case further and doesn't want to burn the body. Instead, he asks 2 guards to keep watch while they investigate further. Junius invites him back to his apartment, mostly because he was curious what led him to take the case and investigate the murders. After his wife Julia was killed, Laurentius lost himself for a while when trying to find the killer, and he was even locked up. He was accused of abusing his position and falsely accusing an equestrian of murder and vile acts. As it turns out, the man was indeed a monster. He was in an incestuous relationship with his daughters, and when the wife found out, he killed her. He wasn't the one who killed Julia though, and eventually Laurentius was exonerated and reinstated. Junius offers him something to eat, some freshly baked bread and pieces of cheese. He takes the first bite, but Laurentius is skeptical and notices something is wrong with the bread. It was infested with maggots, but Junius doesn't notice anything and eats it anyway. Before Laurentius could do anything, it was too late. He apologizes for offering him rotten bread, but blamed everything on mice who sometimes sneak inside his stores. The gladiator games continue. This time even more brutal fights take place in the water. Varaxis was again victorious, successfully killing his opponents and staying on top of the game. Out of nowhere, Junius begins feeling sick, accusing sharp pain in his abdomen. He starts vomiting, regurgitating Caligula's box, which was hidden in his stomach. The box opens up, and the spirit of the old woman who was killed earlier is thrown out. The box refused the old woman's soul because she wasn't Jewish, but Junius claims he wanted to throw off Laurentius and his search for Caligula. Out of nowhere, the woman's head begins moving as she starts screaming, scaring Aulus, who was keeping watch over her. Junius asks Varaxis to bring him a Jew as soon as possible. He needs to feed on his soul. Luckily, one of his gladiators named Lanista is a Jew, but he refuses to give up without a fight. He is an excellent fighter and easily defeats his master in combat. Without his box, he is mortal just like any other human. Lanista prepares to deliver the final blow, but Varaxis surprises him from behind and breaks his neck, saving his master. Junius asks him to bring the box, promising to make him great and show him everything. In the Rome palace, Nero wants to play his mother a song, but in reality, it was a disrespectful song, calling her a whore for having an affair with Pallas. She slaps him and asks him to keep his mouth shut. He has a birthright and is destined to rule the whole world, but only if he keeps his mouth shut and listens to his mother. Nero claims he knows all of her plans, mostly because a demon named Belial speaks to him, telling all sorts of secrets. The demon was hiding in his ear, whispering all kinds of dirty things, antagonizing him against his mother. The gladiator games continue, and Varaxis is stronger than ever, defeating an onslaught of enemies without hesitation. He is unstoppable. Nothing can get in his way, not even other gladiators riding horses. The Emperor and Nero are watching the games and are pleased with seeing the mighty gladiator shine in victory. Claudius asks Varaxis what he wants in exchange for his victories, but he only wants one thing: more Jews that he can kill. Nero antagonizes the people in the Colosseum to listen to the warrior and give him what he wants: more Jews so he can slaughter them. Laurentius returns to the cellar, and Aulus tells him about the old woman who screamed out loud, but now it was over. She was finally dead, and her body is cold. Upon touching the corpse, Laurentius has another vision, remembering his beautiful wife Julia once again. They loved each other very much and used to hug each other while making love, but Aulus brings him back to reality, revealing that he was actually humping the old lady's corpse. Junius arrives and claims the woman's soul has been destroyed, gone to oblivion, to nothing. The thing they are seeing is just an emptiness looking to fill itself. Agrippina is invited to the emperor's private chambers, and she couldn't wait to sit on his lap once again. He is her uncle, and she used to do this a lot when she was a kid, sit on his lap and bounce. Claudius executed his wife for trying to kill him, so he is single again and looking to remarry. He also claims that after the death of Caligula, he is the one who exiled her in order to keep her safe. Agrippina thanks him for keeping her alive and seduces him with her beautiful body. She pulls her dress down, exposing her magnificent breasts, and says she would be honored to once again bounce upon his knee, and if he likes, he can even suck on her titties. Junius lies about the injury on his hand, claiming he tripped and fell on some spiked balls at the arena, but he was actually burned by the woman's soul. He wants to show the Praetorians something and asks them to follow him inside a dark basement. They need torches to light up the corridors, but something feels wrong, and Aulus doesn't like this. Laurentius orders him to stay behind and keep watching, while he follows Junius deeper inside. Suddenly he is overwhelmed with images of his beautiful wife once again. While they were talking about her heritage, she was half Jewish from her mother's side, which made their relationship more difficult. This place was having a strong impact on his mind, but he breaks free and continues the journey deeper. Somewhere in the palace, Nero congratulates his mother for seducing the emperor and securing her place as his future bride. But they are not married yet. And even so, Claudius still has a son from his previous marriage, Britannicus. Nero begins playing a song for his mother while also asking her to wash his feet with her mouth. However, his feet were very dirty because he just came back from the stables and wanted to humiliate his mother. She does it nonetheless, but Pallas interrupts them, which puts a sudden stop to this disgusting act. The mighty gladiator Varaxis wants to speak to the young boy, and he is excused, leaving the adults to talk in private. She tells him about Belial and wonders why he couldn't sense the other demon. He is one of them after all. Demons can't sense other demons unless they reveal themselves willingly. They usually deal in deception, hiding their presence very well. They need to be very clever if they want to win this game, and she needs to find Caligula. Laurentius has another vision. He and Julia had just woken up after spending the night together, but she wants to cuddle, and he gladly accepts the offer. However, he quickly realizes that none of this was true, and the truth is finally revealed. He was kissing the rotten corpse of yet another victim, surrounded by hundreds of corpses from fallen victims. They say a man cannot serve two masters, but for over a dozen years, that's exactly what Laurentius attempted to do. He served his beloved kingdom and Rome, and he served his beautiful wife Julia. They only had one son together, Laurentius Domitius, who died when he was 3 from fever. But still, the couple learned to move on, and they were happy together. When the demon Caligula started killing innocent people on the streets of Rome, Laurentius knew that Julia was in danger. He felt it because of his connection to the demon. He could have taken his wife and left to live somewhere else, but he chose Rome, and they stayed behind. Sadly, she was brutally killed, and now the only thing left remaining are her memories. Julia's soul was taken from her corpse, and Laurentius knew that somewhere she lived in pain and that he needed to find it. But if she is dead, how can they be together now, spending time together, hugging and kissing? She wants to show him something and asks him to follow her, and he accepts. The mighty soldier was actually being seduced by a malevolent force hidden beneath the streets of Rome. Hundreds, if not thousands, of mutilated bodies, all killed to satisfy the demon Caligula. Junius killed all these people because he wanted to keep the demon happy, but now it has abandoned him, and his injuries weren't healing as usual. Elsewhere, Varaxis, the mighty gladiator, was invited to come to the emperor's palace to meet Nero. The young boy was happy to meet him and wants to sing him a song, to which the gladiator gladly accepts. If his mother will marry the emperor, he will ensure that he gets all the Jewish slaves he wants. In fact, he wants to buy from his master. Varaxis tells him about Junius, who goes by the name Felix, a name that was given to him by Emperor Caligula. Out of nowhere, the gladiator starts feeling sick and excuses himself, accusing sharp pains, and asks if he can return again tomorrow to hear the song. The demon Belial finds the entire thing very strange and warns the young boy that something very odd is happening here. And he was right, because the gladiator killed one of the guards, and he sounded the alarm. Many more guards rush to stop him, but they are no match for a mighty gladiator who easily deals with them. After he escapes, one of the guards doesn't understand how the gladiator was still standing. He got stabbed multiple times, yet he lives. Agrippina remembers something horrific about the time when she gave birth. Her brother and the father of the child teased her, making fun of her and humiliating her in front of the female nurses. He called her a claiming that she gave birth to his vile seed, and a vile child was born. He plans to take the baby and raise it as his own, but he intends to spit on him every day. He will make him miserable. He will beat him and belittle him at every turn. He will teach him to hate and make him anti-everything the man from Nazareth stood for, aka Jesus. In the present, Agrippina teaches Britannicus, the emperor's son, how to play the instrument. She stops and asks him to leave the room because she wants to speak with the emperor in private. She claims that now that they are married, there are people who believe that the line of emperors has strayed with Claudians, and who believe that Nero might be a better choice to replace him as emperor instead of his own son Britannicus. He questions her motives, wondering if she wants to trick him and name her son as the future emperor of Rome. But in fact, she has other intentions. She thinks that her son is being manipulated by something evil and wants him eliminated, and asks Claudius to do something about it. Laurentius continues having visions of his beautiful wife, but she wants him to follow her, even though the place they were heading was very cold and dark. He begins having doubts as she pulls him closer and closer into the darkness. He takes a sword and attacks her, cutting off her arm and forcing her to release him from her grip. Suddenly, he is surrounded by the souls of other victims who want to feed on his warmth. But luckily, someone saves him in the last moment by burning the corpses. It was Junius, the man who lured him down here, claiming this place is the heart of Rome, the evilest place in the entire city. He wanted him to see exactly what he was up against, but first, he wants Laurentius to get back to health. Somewhere else, Varaxis was performing a ritual after killing a bunch of people and letting the demon feed on their souls. He brings him back to his home, but Laurentius couldn't help but wonder why he hasn't killed him yet. Instead of calling him Junius, he refers to him as Felix, which is the name Caligula gave him, branding him as his pet. Junius used to be a simple olive man who wanted to avenge his family, but he turned into a sadistic murderer. Junius confesses that he gave up his soul to the demon, but he tossed him aside like a piece of shit when he needed him the most. He no longer has the box, but knows the person that does, and he wants his help to get it back. Laurentius wants to know more about the heart of Rome, vowing to kill him with his sword just as soon as he's strong enough to lift it. Junius calls it his tribute to the demon. There are over 1,000 empty vessels there. If you travel the streets above for blocks around, the misery is so palpable you can drink it. Many have been lured down to it by their nightmares, experiencing what Laurentius experienced, but with a worse end. But it wasn't good enough. Caligula left his body and gave it to Varaxis, the mighty gladiator. In the emperor's palace, Nero orders 6 guards to find Varaxis and bring him back to him alive. Belial mocks him, asking him to stop acting like a child or risk getting treated as one. The gladiator kills again, this time brutally dismembering 2 innocent men in the dark alleys of the city. He reaches his hand inside one of the corpses, looking for the man's soul, and he eventually finds it. His happiness was short-lived because the guards sent by Nero find him. They corner him from every direction and order him to surrender, claiming the only way he is leaving those alleys is in slave chains. The fight is brutal and Varaxis is injured gravely, but the demon heals his body and keeps him alive, giving him an edge to escape. Junius claims he killed Julia because he wanted to send a message, hoping to trigger Laurentius and focus on his mission to find him and kill him, because he couldn't stop what he was doing. Julia's flesh is gone, but Caligula still has her soul, and in order to free her, they need to find the box. After hearing enough, Laurentius pulls out his sword and prepares to end him, but Aulus walks in on them, claiming that he was sick for several weeks, and Junius watched over him the entire time. Laurentius decides to spare him and returns to Agrippina. She is the one who sent him on a mission to find Caligula after all. She pulls down her dress, revealing her mutilated body, accusing Caligula of doing this to her. She is not a nice woman. She is ambitious, greedy, spiteful, and an opportunistic, but she still loves Rome very much. The Caligula wants her son, and if he gets him, it will be the end of Rome. This mustn't happen. Laurentius needs to find and destroy it at any cost. She doesn't even want to know what he was able to find out until now, and asks him to accomplish his mission. Pallas is curious to know what they were talking about, but she refuses to say anything and just asks him to find her some virgins, because her scars were showing again. The servitor brings some food to Nero, but Belial warns him not to eat it, claiming it's poisonous. Out of nowhere, a bunch of assassins show up and want to kill him, but Belial jumps to his rescue. Worms come raining down from the sky, touching the assassins and getting inside their skins and their bodies, causing massive pain and internal bleeding. The demon protected the young boy and stopped the assassination attempt on his life. Laurentius returns home and asks Aulus to take Junius and return to the tunnels and destroy the heart of Rome, the hideous creature that feeds on people's souls. In the meantime, he's going after Varaxis, confident that he can take him alone. He's fought demons before when he defeated Caligula's demon horse. The gladiator kills again, taking people's souls and feeding them to his master by trapping them inside the box. If Junius wants to redeem himself, he needs to help Aulus destroy the madness that he created. Just as the search begins, Nero approaches the emperor's son and offers to help him play the instrument. Meanwhile, his mother was getting f***ed by the other demon, Pallas. Rome stinks of blood and excrement, and somewhere below lays Junius's creation, the heart of Rome, a giant soul-sucking beast. But Laurentius can't shake a bad feeling, remarking that even if all the monsters went away, it would all be just the same. While they were searching the dark and dirty sewers, Aulus says that Junius would get crucified by the guards for worshipping such horrors. He defends his actions, claiming that everything was very intoxicating. He wants him to think about the feeling you have during sex. Now multiply that by 10 times, all the time. That's how he used to feel while under the influence of Caligula. They come across one of the first creatures inside the sewers, and Aulus instantly begins feeling weak, as if the life was being sucked out of him. The 2 boys were becoming friends, and Nero even calls the emperor's son brother. Pallas knows that the emperor paid top men to assassinate her son, and they failed, which means he is only pretending to be an innocent boy. Agrippina is losing the game, and if the emperor won't do her bidding, she needs to take things into her own hands. Laurentius eventually finds Varaxis hiding in one of the houses, but he didn't want to kill him. Instead, he offers him a deal. He knows that Caligula doesn't care about the gladiator, and only uses him to get to his rightful destination. He offers to help him by becoming his vessel, and in exchange, he wants the demon to free his wife's soul. Varaxis calls him mad and attacks him, and a fight to the death begins. While Aulus was struggling on the ground, Junius continues the journey to the center of the sewers, but he meets someone unexpected. His mother's soul was trapped here as well, and she greets him. But he didn't come here for her. Today, he came here to burn this vile creature, and he throws his torch towards the monster, lighting it on fire. Laurentius is a mighty warrior, but even on his best day, he couldn't defeat the mighty gladiator. While they were fighting, Laurentius claims he knows what he really is and continues talking to the demon and completely ignoring Varaxis, which pisses him off. He eventually loses the fight and falls on the ground, but he continues to pitch his offer, asking the demon to release his wife, and in exchange, he can have this miserable world. Varaxis is overcome with pain, and he can't deliver the final blow to his enemy. Instead, he falls to his knees and begins vomiting. He regurgitates Caligula's box from his stomach and places it on the ground. Meanwhile, Laurentius has another vision. He sees his wife once again, and they are able to say goodbye. The demon accepted his deal and freed her, and her soul can now return to the afterlife. He awoke never feeling better in his life with the corpse of Varaxis laying on top of him. He goes on the streets, but something comes over him, and he is overwhelmed with dark thoughts. He attacks a young boy and begins to strangle him, wanting to squeeze the light from him like a grape. Luckily, Junius finds him and stops him from doing something horrible, claiming the box isn't meant for a person such as him. He understands and releases the box from his body, vomiting it in his hands. Without it, however, his body is unwell and he is bleeding from his battle with Varaxis. Terrible things are coming, but at least the soul of his wife is free now and she can finally rest. He wants to leave the city and leaves Rome in his hands, remarking that he finally understands why he killed his wife, why he did all those terrible things. He felt the same urges just as Junius did, and he wasn't in control anymore. At the palace, Agrippina meets her son on the balcony, but Nero apologizes for his behavior in the last couple of weeks, claiming he wasn't himself, but now he is a lot better. He rejected the demon Belial. He cast it out. He gives his mother a big hug, remarking that while she was exiled, he was very lonely and he missed her greatly. But Agrippina has other intentions. She doesn't believe a word coming from her son's mouth and stabs him in the back with a dagger. While he was on the ground bleeding, the boy claims she is not his mother. In fact, they are brother and sister. Somehow, Caligula had possessed the young boy and he was controlling him, and Agrippina couldn't believe what she was seeing. Later, the emperor was pleasuring her in the bedroom by giving her the tongue treatment, but she was thinking of something else. She wants him to adopt Nero, making him the oldest son and heir to the throne. But Claudius could see through her tricks and rejects the offer. He refuses to be manipulated, even by her, but she has her ways and pushes him back into position between her legs. Belial left Nero's ear and was possessing the body of his servant, Nasaka, and both of them were watching the entire scene from the corner of the room. One day soon, all of Rome will belong to Caligula again, and then his mother's sister can burn with the rest of them.